Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Welcome, everybody. This is episode 302 of the Better on Draft podcast. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Go check us live on Facebook and Twitch at 7 p.m. Eastern Friday nights. We are always live. You can join us in the chat. That's facebook.com/betterondraft, twitch.tv/bod podcast. Once again, my name is Ken. I am drinking from Second Self, the Mole Porter. Dan, what do you got?
I have actually got a Partake Red.
Dan going hard tonight. Nick, can you make up for him? What are you drinking?
I can a little bit. I am drinking the Thai Wheat from Second Self.
And Wendy.
I have got the Game Night Hazy IPA. And just to make sure that I'm okay, on deck I also have the Alvalorio, which is... I can't read now. An Imperial Porter, which is actually really delicious.
I did see the Imperial Porter, but since we were doing a double interview night, I did not want to get completely sloshed. But our guest in our studio tonight, Jason from Second Self, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, and where you work.
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me tonight. I really do appreciate it. I am Jason Santamaria. I'm the co-founder president of Second Self Beer Company. We are a little brewery out in Atlanta, Georgia, right kind of in West Midtown area, for those who are familiar with our lovely city.
And what are you drinking?
I'm going a little bougie tonight. So tomorrow is Wanza Day. So I opened up Cantillon Goose, which is one of my favorites. So yeah, I thought it'd be a good reason to celebrate talking to everyone on this lovely podcast.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us and talk about the brewery itself. You guys have been around for a while. When did you guys originally open?
Yeah, so today's actually our 8th anniversary. So it's been quite a ride. We celebrate our anniversary now in the spring, just because it's more fun to celebrate in the spring. But we did launch September 23rd, 2014.
Perfect timing for those of you listening. Yeah. Obviously, we're going to be posting this episode on the 26th. But yes, the 23rd is when we are recording, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on Facebook and Twitch. Got to keep plugging in. And of course, if you're watching or listening to us on podcast, go check out the video over at youtube.com/betterondraft. What was the reasoning? Why did you want to start a brewery?
Yeah, I mean, it goes pretty far back. So I grew up, my family immigrated from Cuba, had restaurants. So I was kind of the restaurant kid, running around my grandfather's restaurant. So I it's kind of in my blood, being in restaurant and foods. When I went to college, I paid for college through a catering company I had. So I kind of had an entrepreneurial vibe there too. So, and then, like most people, I discovered beer in college. It was a very transformative experience. I used to think all beer was just yellow beer. And it's a fun story because we used to play trivia on Monday, Simpsons trivia. And we were so good, we'd split up into 2 teams because we could take first and second. But the rule we had was you had to use your winnings on beer. Couldn't use it for food because that's wasteful. So one week I was there with 2 people and we couldn't drink that much Natty Light. So we asked, barkeep, give us your most expensive beers. And they were Sam Smith oatmeal stouts. And that's the beer that changed my life. So I was like, wow, beer is delicious. Beer is very different than I know. So that set me on a journey, like a lot of people, in discovering what beer could be. And then I wanted to kind of merge these passions of food and beer. And so brewing was the next evolution to that. And then that's kind of where it's got me into home brewing. And then, the name is kind of the next part. So I was a consultant. I traveled the U.S. On weekends, I would make beer and food for my friends. And the joke was it was my kind of alter ego or my second self, which is where the name comes from.
It's a awesome story because having almost like two different lives. Like you have your corporate life and then your personal life, but your personal life, you still went around wanting to, please people, which is typical within the industry. The food and beverage industry, you love enjoying or making sure everyone else around you is happy. This beer right here, so I've got your mole porter. Talk to me a little bit, because when I see mole, I see pepper, I get scared. I'm not getting any heat from this, not even really any back end heat. What am I tasting? And explain why some beers may be, extremely spicy and hot, whereas some beers like this is just completely mellow.
Yeah, so that recipe for mole actually comes from my childhood. So around Christmas, we'd make mole sauce. Looking back, it's probably because my parents had free labor, because it takes an entire day to make mole. But we'd make a huge pot of it, like after Christmas, and like freeze it and use it throughout the year. So it's really my family's recipe that I deconstructed and put into beer. So there's 3 different chilies in there. We're using Pasaya, Ancho, and Guajillo chilies. We use cinnamon and clove as well. It's a chocolate porter, so there's some cocoa in there and some chocolate malt to give the chocolate base. But the reason you're talking about heat, I mean, most of the heat comes from the chili, the seeds. So we actually de-seed our chili. So we will, take 5 pounds, 5 pounds of chilies and literally pull the seeds out of all of those dried chilies, and that's a lot of chilies. So it's a labor of love. We love this beer. We always say like mole is better than pumpkin spice around this time of year. So it's our big. I see some nods, so I appreciate that.
True story.
Yeah.
When you guys first started the business, Georgia had some very arcane laws regarding tap rooms. Were you able to sell inside a tap room? Did you have to sell a tour? How was business prior to the change of like I think it's 2017 law change?
Yeah, so 2017 everything changed. So before that, you could not sell beer to a person. You could sell something else and give away free beer. So you either sell a tour and you get free beer, or you can sell a glass and get free beer. That's kind of the workarounds. But you can only give away up to 36 ounces of beer per person per day.
How did Georgia? Obviously, you're not selling beer, but you're selling beer. How did Georgia, liquor regulations? Did they just turn the other eye? Like, yeah, this is stupid. We're not going to do anything about it. Or did people get in trouble for incorrectly selling?
Oh no! I mean, they were audited. We had officers would show up and like secret shop, and that it was a real thing. So we would make sure that we wouldn't give people more than 36 ounces of product.
Was there certain like phrasing that you always had to do? Like here in Michigan, you can't give away free beer, but for us, like we have a competition like a March Madness, a March Draftness, if you will. And the winning brewery, we buy a keg and we give it away to 140 brand new friends. Because you can buy somebody else beer, you just can't give away beer. Was there like phrasing that you had to use, like secret codes that everyone used? Yeah,
so it was part of it's very specific. You had to have a manufacturing license, so a brewery, not a brew pub. They had to be in your facility, so we couldn't do this outside of our building. The parking lot would count, but like I couldn't do this at a festival or something like that. So it was this very specific exception to the rules, and it was a free tasting was included. So because it was educational, and that was the big thing. So we had to be providing some kind of learning experience to go with it. So you literally had to walk people around the building and say, this is a tank. This is what a tank does. This is what a mash tun is. And because it showed that you were providing an educational experience. As we got closer and closer to 2017, we saw the laws changing. That got a little bit more blurry. I was like, here's a map of the brewery and here's how things happen. And everyone did it differently. So it was kind of like it was a weird time.
How did you guys do it?
So at the time, when we first started, we had like half of the warehouse we have now. So the brewery was literally right next to the tanks. So it was pretty easy just to be like, "Hey, we make beer over there. Here's how it's done." And then the way we did it was, you show up, we buy the glass, we give you we had like wooden tokens with our logo on it, and so you'd be able to hand in your token and get a pour. Was how we did it.
And when the law changed in 2017, was everything done? You could just go business as usual? Like, what was your guys' change in procedure?
Yeah, so we expanded in 2016, and we kind of saw the writing on the wall. So we got the second half of the warehouse that we have now, and then we built a true tasting room. And assuming that this law was coming, we built it out that way. So lots of taps, menu boards, and more of a what you expect of a brewery now, and not just, hey, there's some tanks and a bar, let's have some beers. So
do you see any issues, before I pass this off, because I'm always curious about out-of-state laws, because Michigan has its own issues. We're still a token festival state, so you have to give and sell tokens no matter what. You can't just have a regular festival. You guys have, I didn't know that. We still do. They actually rewrote a new law, messed up the writing of the law, and nothing changed. So they have to rewrite the law yet again because it's not that the intent of the law was to change it and remove it, but because the new writing of the law didn't change the intent, they're afraid our liquor commission, the MLCC, might come in and knock you, close you, and if you lose your license, I mean that's game over.
That's it.
But in Georgia, you guys actually have a max ABV limit of 14%. First, is that just for importing beer, or is that for even beer that you guys make?
That is any beer sold in the state of Georgia.
Can you make 14 or 15% beer and sell it in Florida?
No, we can't make 15% beer, period.
Okay. I was just curious if you could, if you had some type of, mishap and your ABV was a 15 and a half, if you could pawn it off to a neighboring state that distros your beer.
No, you're supposed to destroy it if that happens.
Have you ever had to destroy a beer, gotten a little too close to the sun?
I mean, yeah, we had a beer that was 13.99999%. And I'll just say that.
That's a good name for a beer, especially if you can't be over 14. That'd be a good.
Right?
Super precise instruments we have here.
I'm going to pass it over to you, Dan. Dan, what's going on?
All right. So taking a look, I came across a beer that you have called Vikings of the South. And you mentioned that you resurrected a 500-year-old proprietary yeast mixture. And there's a good story behind this beer, too. Can you talk to us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so we were one of the first breweries in the Southeast to use Hornindal Kvik yeast, and that's kind of the story of that. So I mean it's you see Kvik yeast a lot now, but in 2016 you weren't seeing that anywhere. So I mean, and that really does come from that. So the labs at Omega Labs, they actually did that to create that yeast. So it's a combination of Sacro and Brett yeast to create that pretty unique, it's very stone fruity flavor if you ever had anything with a Kvik yeast. And it's really interesting because it ferments at a super high temperature too. So we were fermenting some of our beers at the Vikings of the South, we ferment at 95 degrees, which is in Georgia great because you just turn off the glycol and just let it go.
So you mentioned that your family's from Cuba. Talk to us a little bit about how that's influenced your style of brewing and the beers you've come up with.
Yeah, a lot of it's because it's food. I mean, so I grew up cooking and eating and all sorts of things. So, it's my family's Cuban, but they had Italian restaurants, and so it's a mixed mash to begin with. But I've always just been fascinated in recipe development. Actually 2 years ago, I self-published a small Cuban cookbook based on family recipes, and I called it Food Archaeology because my grandfather never wrote recipes down. So I was recreating them based on taste and sensory, and then going down to the gram level, so you can recreate and scale them up. So I'm like super nerdy when it comes to recipe making, and I think I get that from that. My dad's an engineer as well, so I think that combination of those things is what has led me to where I am. But yeah, just being able to when I look at beer recipes, I want to create like thought, or I want to invoke memories. So mole porter for me is being with my family at Christmas and making that, and that's why I've made it. I hope people like it, and I hope they enjoy it, and have other memories they create on their own. But that's mine, and I like sharing that, and I love sharing the story when I can.
That's a great story. Now, swinging over to the food side, you mentioned, coming from a family that ran Italian restaurants. How do you get to the point, out of curiosity, that you're having sushi making classes? That's probably the first brewery I've ever come across that's running that type of class.
Yeah. So, I mean, the ethos of Second Self is really helping people go from that I have a dream to making it a reality. So we partner with a lot of chefs who they might be working at a restaurant and they want to start their own thing. So we want to help cultivate that and create a space where they can get out on their own. We also do a lot of contract manufacturing for our businesses too. So something that we got into more during the pandemic, kind of keep the lights on. But I mean, we make products for coffee companies and tea companies and all sorts of people, helping them get their business off the ground. And I think it's important.
Excellent. Nick, you said you had a question?
Yeah, really quickly, going back to the mole porter, has any one of your customers, your visitors to your brewery, have they asked for spicy? Do they want that extra spice? And have you tried considering maybe adding some spice to it? Maybe, unlike Ken, who doesn't like any spicy food in general or spicy beer in general, I think you hit something with him with I've yet to have it today. But have you gotten any kind of feedback about, hey, can you make a spicier version of this?
Yeah, absolutely, and we have. So mole sauce on its own is not a heat type sauce. So that's why I wanted the base one to be mild, if you will. We make a version we call Devil's Mole, which is where I use chipotle chilies as well. And we definitely leave the seeds in there. So you're getting, I love the element of smoke. I like adding it in beers a lot. And I think it adds a great depth with the flavor profile of mole. And then the heat kind of comes there too. We've gotten super hot too. So we've even made, one year we soaked chipotles. We made a chipotle extract basically using tequila. So chipotles, tequila, and then put that into the beer. It was so hot, we had to blend it like 3-1, like base mole to that, to get it so people could drink 8 ounces of it. Because it was insanely hot.
I'd be in for that one.
But to say, I feel like that would be right up Dan's alley. Maybe me. I'm not so sure. I do like spicy, but I do have a threshold. Ken, on the other hand, no, shaking his head. No,
Yeah, I love heat. I love smoke. Thai wheat is a beer that we've had a lot of variations. I mean, when I was in the homebrewing side of it, we so many variations of it. Sure. I used to have bird's eye chilies in it as well because I thought it added nice heat and some vegetal taste to it. But when we went to production and had to sell and distribution, I couldn't be like throwing bird's eye chilies and beers. So,
really quickly, Wendy, do you like spicy food by any chance?
I do to a degree, and I sometimes I like spice in beer.
Okay,
it depends on the flavor involved with it, not just the heat.
All right, maybe with chocolate, maybe it'll be. Yeah, she's nodding her head.
Add chocolate to anything, and I'm happy. So
okay, all right, there you go. All right, so let's get back to the brewery itself. Before tonight's show, before we got together, I saw the video that's on Second Self Brewery Brewing's on your website, and you talked about the side hustle. Yes. Has Second Self become the main focus, and now other stuff has become the side hustle? Because I was perusing on your LinkedIn earlier today, and you had there was a number of experiences that are still showing as present while still being owner of Second Self. So is Second Self taking the primary position and everything else has become the side hustle for you?
Yeah, that's kind of the joke is, that now that Second Self is my first self, what's my new second self? And so I did start a CBD hemp infused water company, which I run. And, we are about to launch our spirits and canned cocktail lines in a little bit. We're waiting on our final license locally. So we're getting into that game too, which I'm super excited about.
Right.
So.
Did you ever imagine that this side hustle going from a home brewer to now full blown craft brewery in Atlanta? Did you ever think that it would be as big as it is, or did you always think it was good that this was going to be the side hustle?
It was always the dream to have it happen. I do say I'm lucky enough to be able to achieve that. It could definitely be bigger. Mm-hmm. So I'm not done. If this Thai wheat is any indication, I hope you are not done, because this is fabulous. Thank you. So that's still, in the world of IPAs taking over craft beer, that is still our top seller. It's Thai.
Really?
Like everything we release, nothing can touch what Thai wheat does.
I was thinking when I saw the name Thai, I'm like, okay, is this going to be slightly spicy? But you and I, you mentioned it before we started going live that you kind of took the chili. There were some chilies in this, or there was some spice element to this at one point, and that kind of gotten removed.
At some point, Thai wheat was almost like a kitchen sink. I had kaffir lime, I had coconut, I had all the spices that are in there now. And basically, it was just too much. It was so much that you couldn't really taste what was in there. Mm-hmm. And so that's when that was my first lesson in simplification. So really started over with the recipe, mm-hmm. and only added the things that had to happen to create that flavor. And we use ginger, lemongrass, and galanga, also called Thai ginger. So it's really earthy ginger. It's very spicy. We don't add a lot, but on its own, it got some heat.
One more question before I turn it over to Wendy. I was perusing through the beers that are on sabbatical right now, and I saw that there was one of the Vikings of the South is one of that Dan mentioned earlier is one of those beers. A couple that I saw here were some homages to a certain movie with a certain actor who rides around in an airplane. And which, by the way, is a awesome series of movies. But then one really caught my attention. It's your New England double called "Suffering Till Suffrage."
Yeah,
talk to us a little bit about that one. What was the inspiration behind that one, and why a New England double for that one?
Yeah, so it was 2019, so 100 years celebrating women's suffrage, the women's right to vote. So we wanted to celebrate that. And so we worked with the local Pink Boots chapter here. And so we bought the Pink Boots. This first year they offered the Pink Boots blend of hops from Yakima. So we did some experimenting and just really wanted to showcase those hops. And so that's where the style came in there. So we just really wanted to show, because it was Sabco, Laurel, a couple others, but it was stone fruit, coconut. I just wanted to explode your palate with it. And we worked with a local female Puerto Rican artist who was just awesome, Lisette. And so the art's super great for that.
If you are on your phone or if you're near a computer, go check out secondselfbeer.com and check out the beer section. The artwork for that can looks pretty bomb. It looks pretty darn good. So
thank you.
Check it out, guys. And who knows? Maybe hopefully, Jason, maybe will it come back? Maybe potentially.
No, we want it to come back for sure. And touching on art real quick. I mean, we're actually the official beer of the Museum of Design Atlanta because we've won more design awards for our labels than anyone else has in Georgia. So I take that as a point of pride. And we'll only work with local artists to do all of our art. So
right on. All right. Wendy, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I think it's interesting that you just said that because I was about to say, well, I don't know. All of the cans that I have here are pretty awesome in their artwork. I'm actually very curious about this Alvalorio where that came from, because I'm very interested in the artwork that's on here.
That's probably my favorite art story of any beer we've ever done. So, O Velorio means the wake. In Latin culture, when someone passes, you basically just throw a giant party and celebrate that person's life, called O Velorio. And in Puerto Rico culture, so my family was Cuba. From Cuba. They lived in Puerto Rico, and they came to the U.S. So I have ties kind of everywhere. And both cultures, Cuba and Puerto Rico, you have like a hot chocolate coffee drink at these, because we put coffee in everything. But so we made that beer just to showcase the journey the island went through with Maria. So most of our art has a vertical split. It's the two selves, as we call it. So the left half of that can is in black and white, showing how the island was decimated and people were struggling. And then the right half is how it came back. So super fitting this week with the hurricane that came through and the power outage in Puerto Rico. So when Maria happened, we actually sent we canned a bunch of water and sent it down. We're going to do it again for this recent one. Puerto Rico is actually our largest distribution market. And it's that beer that caused that to happen, because we wanted to tell that story here, because it was a story that wasn't told much. And so we wanted to give that voice, and the beer is based on that drink. So it's, we're using Puerto Rican chocolate. The Puerto Rican coffee was actually all destroyed in Maria, but we got some from a very small producer, and I worked with a local roaster to recreate that flavor profile. And so we use that in the coffee, in the beer.
It's a very delicious.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's super tasty, but it's just a very there's a passion project.
It's an important story.
Yeah, it's a very important story. So.
I definitely appreciate that. So, in that story, you talked about the twos. So tell us the significance of the twos at your brewery.
Yeah, so there's second self, two twos. Our logo is two twos to make an S. It's two of us that founded it. Chris is my business partner. There's lots of second self analogies out there. Like the second self is your best friend. I think it's a yin and yang. There's a balance to everything, and it kind of that goes to the beer as well. I personally don't want things to be too cloyingly sweet or too hot or too anything. I want you to be able to have one or have two or have six and enjoy them and when you do, notice new things as you try different things.
So I am an avid beer traveler, and Atlanta is one of my favorite beer scenes. I've never actually been able to go to your brewery, which I find really weird, but I have had friends that have sent me your beer, and it's amazing. I really do like it, but I want to know if I am coming to your brewery, or why should I come to your brewery, and why should I bring my friends?
Yeah, number one in everything we do is customer service. To be honest with you, our tasting manager Carly is awesome, and she has set up, I think, the best experience of any brewery there. Like, we're super friendly. We want, if it's your first time there or your 100th time there, we want it to be a great experience. We have lots of interesting beers. So we have 20 taps. So typically we have one cider, two hard seltzers, and the rest are going to be beers. We'll be adding four more lines for liquor as well. So tasting wise, it's a fun experience. We have a pretty big space, which is fun. And then we actually recently partnered with a new company called Big Hoops. So I'm a Georgia Tech grad, and the guys who started this are also from the same college. And it's the best way to describe it, and I hate doing this, but is like the Top Golf of basketball. It's a technology embedded half court that the goal moves and turns, and it's completely gamified and super fun. But yeah, that's on its own. But we also do a ton of events. Like Dan mentioned, we work with a lot of chefs to do classes. We do yoga, we do fitness classes, we do comedy nights, we do trivia. So there's always, like, every night we always try to do something a little different, and make it a fun, relaxed experience for anyone.
So that kind of leads me to my next question, because Atlanta is known for their food. And I know that you have a food background. So what is the food like when we go to your brewery?
So we don't have a full kitchen. So we partner with a couple different local restaurants. So there's we have a selection of burritos, which they change every week. So you'll get something new every time. And then we have a lot of local snacks, like pretzels. I got some charcuterie from a local butcher, and we always have some interesting things. But we let people bring in outside food too, because there's when we opened there wasn't really a lot of places you can get takeout, but now there's so many great options. I don't want to really compete with our friends and customers, to be honest with you, because there's so many great things around us. And I'm also a believer in just being a specialist in something. So I can make beer really, really good. There's not a lot of breweries I've been to that have really, really good food and really, really good beer. So I'm going to let the pros do the food, and I'll just focus on beer.
All right. That makes sense. So tell us a little bit about the distilling program that you want to implement.
Yeah, so kind of an evolution of what we do. The side project, it's been called Third Self, just as a code name, because we think we're pretty punny. So this is something that we definitely haven't been doing experiments on, but we'll be doing some of the first products we'll be launching is a Thai wheated vodka. So we're making a wheat vodka and using the Thai spices in there. And then I have a series of gins that we'll be launching as well. And then on the cocktail side, the canned cocktail sides, we're doing seasonal kind of spritzers. So it'll be vodka, natural flavoring, just enough sweetness to kind of balance it, and soda water. So looking at like a probably around 6.5% alcohol is what we're shooting for. We haven't been able to do full R&D because we don't have our licensing yet. So that's kind of the plan, though. And then the kind of a seasonal rotation of flavors.
So I see too that you guys are involved in a lot of different festivals in Atlanta. What is it that makes you want to? Is it just marketing, or do you just like being out there with the people?
All the above. I mean, it's a great way for people to see us who might not see us in the grocery store, because the only beer you can get of ours in the grocery store is Thai wheat. So all the other ones you have to go to a specialty kind of craft beer place. So it's a great place, a great way to show off these other beers, and we get a lot of customers that way, and just love meeting new people. It's always fun to show off and tell the story. What's
the favorite festival that you guys are a part of?
I'll say the one I'm looking forward to the most, and it's the first year, there's the first fresh hop festival we've ever had in Georgia, and that's going to be October 22nd at Wrecking Bar. So we just made a fresh hop table beer. It's almost done, but it's 3.5%. It's fresh hop, so it's a little vegetal. It's really interesting. I've never had anything like it before. It's fun. That's Austin's our head brewer, so he took full reign on that one. So that's his little baby.
So, do you do a lot of collaborations?
We do, yeah. So we work with El Velorio was a collaboration with a Puerto Rican restaurant, actually. My abuelas in Atlanta, they no longer exist, but at the time they're there. But we love doing that. We recently did a collaboration with the Bottle Share, which is a nonprofit that helps people in the beer industry in time of need. So if they lose a job or if they take time off and can't get money for some reason, they help fund that kind of emergency fund. And that was a beer called Totally Tubular. It was a sour IPA. And then today actually we did a collaboration with up and coming brewery, or haven't started yet, brewery called Hip Hop Heads. So we made a West Coast IPA with them today, actually.
That's fun. Is there a brewery that you would like to do a collaboration with that you haven't been able to yet?
There's thousands of breweries I'd love to collaborate with. I mean, my hero brewery is in America, I guess, is Allagash. I go there every summer because my in-laws are in Maine, and I just love everything they do. So if they're listening, I'm available. but yeah, our neighbors are Monday night. They're great to work with, and like it's a small but growing beer community here in Atlanta.
For a second, I thought you were saying Allagash was a small brewery. I'm like,
oh no, not at all, not at all.
I'm like, we have different definitions of small.
No, people do kind of laugh when I will mention the brewing scene in Atlanta, because I've been and I liked it so much I went back very shortly. So I can't wait to come and visit your brewery as well.
No, please let me know when you do.
So, what is it about the Atlanta beer scene that you think that makes people want to come there?
It's unique. It's growing really fast, which I think is really interesting. So when we launched Second Self, we're the 42nd brewery, and now there's like 150 breweries around here. So there's a lot of interesting things, and it's what I love is that a lot of the newer ones are really picking some interesting specialties and just focusing on that. I think that's what's really cool. And I was a firm believer then, and still am now, is that the restaurant industry in Atlanta is one of the best in the country, I will say, and that influences beer so much. And so when you have those younger, excited chefs who are creating new things, there's also people in the kitchen who are interested in beer, and those are the ones who've started breweries. So it just, creativity creates more creativity. So
that actually leads me to another question, because I read an article that you where you talked about beer and food pairings. What is one of your favorite beer and food pairings?
So there's two main philosophies for beer and food pairings. There's the finding something similar, which is what most people do. So like blue cheese, or so like sorry, not blue cheese, but like oval Oreo and a coffee cake. So, or you got coffee on coffee. It's a super easy pairing. It's going to be a home run. But what I love is contrast pairings. So finding something that is very different, but together is better. So something like a blue cheese and a stout, that's what I was going to say. So you have like super funky, weird, sharp, but then you have the sweetness that balances that out with the beer. And I think that's the most fun pairings I like. Because it challenges the consumer as well. It's like, well, this is something interesting and different.
So do you guys do events like that at your brewery?
We have, for sure. Because we don't have a kitchen, we're limited in what we can do. But we've done, cheese pairings, donut pairings, charcuterie pairings, brownie pairings. We've done a lot of interesting things. Pre-pandemic, we were doing one a month from different people. So it's these classes that we've added those back. Those are kind of the first thing, and now we'll be doing our pairing starting soon.
That's awesome. I really do want to come visit. Ken, I heard you had some stuff.
I guess I have some stuff. Did we touch on, I don't think we did, Rudy's Hard Seltzer?
No, we didn't talk about it. So Rudy is actually my Cuban grandfather's nickname. So he's the one who kind of got me into making beer and like sodas. He used to make his own ginger beer. So when we got into the hard seltzer game, which we kind of we've only dabbled our toes in. We didn't really go that deep into it. I wanted to pay an homage to him. So, but those are fun because I wanted to, use two different ingredients to make a new flavor. So it's all of them kind of have two sides to them. So like we have a ginger turmeric, blue raspberry, and cucumber basil. But in the tasting room, I actually we make a bunch of tinctures or syrups, and so you can and those rotate. So we call it build your own seltzer. So if you want to come and try it, you can kind of say I want this or combination, or let the bartenders choose or whatever.
Is that like a base hard seltzer without any flavoring, and then you're kind of building it yourself?
Correct. Yeah, and that'll actually be replaced with liquor seltzer instead. Eventually,
it'll be replaced with what? I'm sorry.
Well, a liquor-based seltzer.
Okay.
So once we have that permit, the flavorless seltzer will go away, and we'll be using liquor-based seltzer.
What is a liquor-based seltzer? Like, what is the comparison?
Oh, so like vodka and soda.
Oh, okay.
Versus a hard seltzer.
Got it. You also do CBD beverages as well, correct?
Yeah, we do. So I have Cirrus, which is a CBD-infused water company, and then another company called Real Good Tea. I did the formulations for them, which is a CBD and adaptogen tea.
Why did you want to get into making CBD products?
It's a couple different things. It was my going back to 2018. I was working on hard seltzers because I thought they'd be the next big thing, and then they became the next big thing. So then I was like, well, what is the next big thing? And that's when I thought it would be CBD or cannabis-infused drinks. And Cirrus was one of the first 10 CBD-infused drink companies in the country. So we were like super ahead of the game. And Georgia's a pretty conservative state, so it was kind of interesting launching that product at that time. But it's also it was something that I was using CBD to help me sleep, because as a business owner, I was like waking up and not sleeping. So it's like, oh, this is providing benefit for me. Let's make an alternative to alcohol that can provide benefits to people. And so that's where that was born.
Now, we touched on hard seltzer and liquor seltzer and CBD, but the one thing that I'm not necessarily seeing, and I could be missing it, is NA beer. With the boost that is Athletic, we just had on our most recent interview with Harpoon, they just launched their first NA hazy beer. Are you guys going to be making or contracting any NA beer in the near future, or do you think you already have your hand in 8 different other pots?
We certainly have our hands in a lot of pots, but it's funny. It was something that I proposed to our board 3 years ago, because I thought that would be something that would become huge, because it's a substantial monetary investment for that equipment to make good NA beer. We'd like to get there. We don't have the capital to do that right now, but I think an alcohol-free Thai wheat would do very well, personally.
Would it be easy enough do you have any NA brewers out in Atlanta or the Georgia area that you could potentially collaborate with to make a NA Thai?
Yeah, it's funny. We do. I reached out to them, and then they actually we bid to become their contract manufacturer, and we did not get the bid. So we will be working with them to do that in the future, but it'll be probably a year before we can get that done.
All right.
Because there's only one in Georgia right now.
I think what you need to do is you need to take the success of Athletic, put together a nice binder for your investors, and say this could have been you.
I have said that.
For sure. Before we get into the final questions, there is one more thing that I noticed within your website, and that is that all of your beer is 100% vegan. Was that by choice, or was that something that you wanted to do specifically?
Yeah, I mean, both. So it was our head brewer, Austin, is vegan. So, I mean, it was kind of important to him. Also, we have an anti-lactose stance at our brewery. We don't like sweet beers. If we do other, we'll use maltodextrin or something like that to create some sweetness. Or what I like to do really is use fruits. So the lemon pepper wet, one of the samples I gave you was a ton of lemon and pineapple juice. So it's very sweet. But one of the unique things about us, because we do all this NA stuff, is that we have a pasteurizer. So we're able to add juice and then pasteurize it so it remains sweet, but it's shelf stable, so it won't explode when you don't leave it in your fridge. So
I never thought in 2020 being shelf stable is a something positive you have to promote, that you're okay on the shelf.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people I know who've had beer explode in their car. So
I have heard plenty of stories from
there's some hands raised. Yeah,
plenty of stories from our not brewery fans, beer store friends, talking about, you know, stuff exploding in their refrigerator or on their shelf or something like that. And I'm like, that's just crazy. But that is the show. Before we end the show, we always ask one final question and then give you the opportunity to help everyone understand where they can find you both online and in person. Starting with Dan. Dan, what is your final question here for Mr. Second Self?
All right. What is one style of beer that you have yet to make at the brewery that you want to make?
That's a hard one because we've made over 350 different beers. I'll because a lambic or a goza. I'd absolutely love to do that. Spontaneous fermentation. We've not done that at all. I would love to do that and do it well. That's the more important part of that.
In case you were wondering, Dan, he did make a alt beer earlier this year. So,
I already knew that. So,
yeah.
Nick, what's your final question?
What are you drinking this weekend that isn't Second Self?
Well, tomorrow is Zwanza Day, which is so Zwanza Day is for those who don't know, Cantillon, which is a spontaneous fermentation brewery in Brussels. Once a year, they let their brewmaster make whatever they want. Zwanza means to goof off. So around the world, everyone taps the beer at the same time, Brussels time. So we have we're lucky enough to have two Zwanza bars here in Atlanta. So I have tickets to that tomorrow. So I'll be drinking some Zwanza, and as well as some, I assume, other great Belgian beers at Brickstore Pub here in Atlanta.
All right.
I was going to ask you about that. But my final question is, I am coming to visit your brewery this weekend. What is the one beer I need to try?
Casual Situation. We just tapped it. It is a Brett and lacto co-fermented Thai wheat variant. So it's super interesting because you're getting all that kind of like hay and funk of Brett, a little tartness mixed with the ginger and lemongrass. We just tapped that one today. It's delicious.
Awesome. All
right. Well, Georgia Tech's got a massive challenge tomorrow. For those of you who are listening to the show, obviously if you're listening live, you're going to hear his response, but we'll already know the results by the time the show gets posted. But they are facing the University of Central Florida Knights. Your 1 and 2 Yellow Jackets, are they going to win tomorrow?
I sure hope so, but I don't have high hopes.
Give me a score prediction.
Oh, I'll just say 13-21. I'll play conservative.
All right. You heard it here. Go make your bets. DraftKings, FanDuel. You're getting the Yellow Jackets +8. Or -8, I should say. That's going to do it. Better on Draft Podcast. My name is Ken. For my co-host Dan, Nick, and Wendy, thank you so much for joining us. Rob, we miss you. We know you're over at a trivia convention over in D.C., so we hope you're safe and having fun. Second Self, where can they find you online, and where can they find you in Atlanta?
Yeah, so online you can find us secondselfbeer.com. That's SECONDSELFBEER. You can find us on Instagram at Second Self Beer and Twitter and Untapped. And on Facebook, we're Second Self ATL, since you can't use the word beer. In Atlanta, you can find us at 1311 or 1317 Logan Circle, Northwest Atlanta, Georgia, West Midtown location. We are the heart of the Brewery Central, actually the newly formed Atlanta Beer District, starting this month.
Well, that's going to do it. Better on Draft. You can find us Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Better on Draft, as well as you can friend us. Find out what we were drinking on the show by friending us on Untapped or Better on Draft. We got that changed. You can watch us live Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Join us, ask questions. That is going to do it. We appreciate you joining us. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Peace.